think big, because then you're going to get big. Then you're going to go and achieve big things. That is the most important thing. You know, we don't achieve big things by accident. So shoot for the top, shoot for the sky, shoot for the, for the stars. All of those liabilities that they talked about started turning into assets. When I did Conan the Barbarian, the director came to me and he said, if we wouldn't have you, we would have had to build one. And on Terminator, the director said, I couldn't imagine to have anyone play Terminator that wouldn't have an accent and that wouldn't have your body. I cannot imagine the line, I'll be back, with a normal American accent. It works so perfectly that you have this German accent. So all of those things that they said are liabilities became an asset. As moment went on, it grew and grew, and I went from one movie to the next, started making more and more money, and then I ended up being the highest paid actor with $30 million on Terminator 3. The other thing is that you got to work your butt off. If you think that you're going to go and accomplish something really special and be the best in anything in the world, and you think you can do it without working, you make a big mistake. Because no matter what I did, if it was in bodybuilding or in acting or if it is in the political arena, it always took a lot of work. And you got to put out, and you got to, sometimes make a lot of sacrifices. Notice, if you're not willing to work hard, forget about it. So there's another rule that is very important. Use your power of potential and make this nation and this world a better place. It worked for this immigrant that came over here to this country with $20 in the pocket, and I know and I guarantee you it will work for you too. Don't be afraid to fail, because if you're afraid to fail, then you're always holding yourself back because you're afraid that if you go all out, you may fail. Well, in weightlifting, we learned that very quickly. The only way you could break a record is if you're willing to fail. That's when you put on more weight, you try it, sometimes you would not be able to lift it, which has happened to me many times, but eventually, when you train hard enough, you will lift it. So don't be afraid to fail. I mean, how far can you fall? That just shows you again so much for it can't be done. This is why I try to tell you, anything and everything can be done if you can visualize it and if you believe in yourself. It was the same thing again when I ran for governor. You can imagine when I went on the Tonight Show and I announced that I'm going to run for governor of the great state of California. People came to me afterwards and said, you're crazy. You don't announce something like this on the Tonight Show. You have an official press conference at the state capitol. Plus, you don't start with governorship, you start first with mayor or with state senator. And I said, I don't want to be senator, I don't want to be mayor, I want to be governor. Don't you understand that? Well, the rest is history. I won in 2003 and I won also in 2006. Let me tell you, you're going to find the naysayers in every turn that you make. Don't listen. Just visualize your goal, know exactly where you want to go. Trust yourself. Get out there and work like hell and break some of the rules and never ever be afraid of failure.
Experiencing pain in your muscles and aching and just then go on and go on and then go on. And this last 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. And that divides then one from a champion and one from not being a champion. If you can go through this pain barrier, you make it to be a champion. If you can't go through, forget it. And that's where most people lack, is on this having the guts to go in and just say, I go through and I don't care what happens. You know, it aches, and if I fall down, I have no fear of fainting in a gym, because I know it could happen. I threw up many times while I was working out, but it doesn't matter, because it's all worth it.
Everyone has a problem with time, but the day has 24 hours, and we sleep 6. Now, I know there's some out there that say, whoa, I need 8. Well, I say just sleep a little faster. Because the bottom line is we have 6 hours of sleep, 24 hours are available, so you have 18 hours now available to do your work, your family, your hobbies, and also to learn something new or to do something new, which could easily be that you want to learn a new language, or that you want to read as a New Year's resolution, I have to read a book every week, or you say, I'm gonna go and reshape my body. So you're gonna go and take this hour out of your schedule and say, I'm gonna train an hour every day. So this is, for most people, a huge challenge, but it is totally doable, I can tell them, because the kind of things that I did when I came to this country, I mean, I went to school, I was working in construction, I was working out my 5 hours a day, I was taking acting classes from 8 o'clock at night to 12 midnight, I was doing all of those things. I wanted to make sure that out of the 24 hours of the day, that I don't waste one single hour. Those hours were too precious. And so there I just want to tell people, don't give me this thing, I have a difficult time with the time and I don't have time for this and I don't have that. You have time, you make the time.
I had this need of coming to America. I mean, when I started learning about America at the age of 10, and we got geography lessons and learned about America and about and so the first photographs I remember in those photos in the textbook, but also in Super 8mm film footage that they showed in the classroom, you know, about the Golden Gate Bridge and the Empire State Building and the 6-lane highways and all this. I said, what am I doing here in Austria? I mean, there's little roads. I want to go over there and I want to be part of the big deal. And so I had always this desire, and I felt like that the only way I ever would get to America, because in those days it wasn't common that you buy yourself a ticket, that no one could afford that. So I had to kind of accomplish something big that takes me to America. And then when I read about this guy, Reg Park, who won Mr. Universe 3 times and then became a star in Hercules movies, and then was in Italy filming and then in Hollywood filming, I felt that could be the ticket. I should become Mr. Universe, I should become kind of a second Reg Park. Of course, no one really bought into that. My parents thought I was totally insane. And I remember that I hung up pictures above my bed, you know, for inspiration, pictures of Reg Park in his posing trunks and all that. My mother was so concerned, she called the local doctor and she had him analyze the wall because she thought that there's something terribly wrong, that I have naked men above my bed and all of my buddies had women hanging above their bed. And so she was concerned about that. And but they just, I think that my parents really thought that there was something terribly wrong of being that driven. You know, because I would come home at lunchtime and then instead of having lunch, I would do 200 sit-ups. And then at night, I would go to the stadium and I would be lifting weights. I would come home at 10 o'clock at night and I would be continuing lifting weights. So it was like one of this insanity in the military. I would continue lifting weights no matter how the training was and how tough the basic training was. I would always then lift weights afterwards. And as a tank driver, I would have on the side of the tank in the toolbox, I would have my weights, my barbells, and my dumbbells, and my exercise bench and everything there in order to be, at any given time, if we stopped driving the tank and maneuvers at 2 in the morning, I would be able to pull out my weights and again lift for 2 hours my weights. So I was really a fanatic about the whole thing. But it's the only way you really get where the way I succeeded, because I became at the age of 20 the youngest Mr. Universe in London in the history of bodybuilding, because the youngest before then was Reg Park, the guy I was talking about, with the age of 24, but I became the youngest with 20, but it was because I was like so serious about the whole thing, and it worked. With the age of 21, after I won my second Mr. Universe title, I got an invitation from Joe Weider, who was the publisher of all the muscle magazines in America, and also the person that had the biggest warehouses of weight training equipment and had food supplement companies and all this. And he brought me to America, and so there I was. I mean, 6 years after my dream started, I was in America. I think it's the most important thing that we have a very clear vision of where we go, a goal, where do we go? Because you can have the best ship in the world, you can have the best cruise liner, but if the captain does not know where to go, that ship will drift around the world and out there at sea and will never end up anywhere. And this is exactly the way it is in real life. If you don't have a goal, if you don't have a vision, you just drift around and you're not going to be happy. This is why it is so important to have that vision. Now, I created that vision in Austria because I grew up after the Second World War. Austria, right along with Germany, lost the Second World War, thank God. And the problem was that everyone was so depressed because they lost the war, that there was alcoholism everywhere.
There was, of course, depression, there was a terrible economic situation, there was famine, there was starvation and all of those things. And also it was kind of a little place and narrow. I felt I wanted to get out of there, I wanted to escape. And I couldn't see myself really to work there and to stay there, to work in a factory or to work on a farm, or to even to follow my father's footsteps and to become a police officer. I couldn't see that either. As a matter of fact, that's what my parents wanted me to do. They wanted me to become a police officer and to marry a girl by the name of Heidi and to have a bunch of children and to run around like the Von Trapp family in The Sound of Music. But that's not what I saw. This was the vision of my parents, but not mine. And luckily, one day in school, I watched a documentary about America. And I found myself, I knew exactly that is where I wanted to end up. I wanted to be in America. But I tell you that I was very fortunate that I had great heroes. I had great heroes that I could look up to, and I mentioned two of them, Muhammad Ali and Sergeant Shriver, my father-in-law. But there's other great heroes like Gorbachev, Reagan, Mandela, great leaders like Mother Teresa, Chancellor Kohl, and Churchill, and the list goes on and on. I mean, those people had such an impact on the world. Single-handedly, they've changed the world. We all can create change, whether it is in our neighborhood, or in our local schools, or in our country. It can be big, but it can also be as little as just going to a school kid that has problems reading and teaching that kids how to read or how to do math. We don't have to just work on me. We should also work on we. Not just me, but also we. Remember that. To lead a truly full life, you must give back. You must leave the world a better place than you found it. Because the bottom line is, it is up to us. I mean, those rules that I've given you are important rules, but giving back is one of the most important rules.